Nuke was in a pickle. He'd been asked to sell some drugs as an initiation ritual into a criminal syndicate, but the local marketplaces were under martial law. He'd never get away with it, and so he'd never get into the gang, and so he'd never get to grips with how hashish was actually produced and distributed. Then, almost waking from the dream, he was dragged back in by a stroke of genius. Guys, watch this, he said to the crew. He held a block of green in one hand and a string of cats in the other. With the skill of a being with full control over at least 2 limbs, he swapped the items from left to right via the armpit. The sale was complete. It was an act of fraud that mixed legal and illegal as smoothly as a hiver stirs his latrine, then sells the stirring stick as a wooden leg to a passing guild, to use a randomly generated simile. "Okay, but you said we could go home," Izumi complained. "I know. I'll go make good with the drugs mummy in the swamp and catch up with you. I'll be back before Charlie even realizes what I did with the switcheroo back there." While the gang prepared to stay the night in Clownsteady and then head home, Nuke raced back north to the pitch darkness of the swamp. He felt extremely confident he'd be able to find his way. I mean, you just follow the little trail. And then he found himself wading waist deep through stagnant water. And then... well, it's hard to say just how lost Nuke actually got, for he himself never truly understood the depths of it. Suffice to say, at one point he found himself falling into a series of underground smugglers' tunnels and began randomly selecting which direction to take at each fork. "He bought it off himself," Els realised back in Clownsteady, with no sign of his master's return. Nuke found a bit of tunnel that sloped upwards and used it to return to the surface. When he emerged, he was inside a building made of concrete and filled with industrial machinery. Bright ceiling lights flickered on as he entered, and it didn't smell of rotting flesh as much as your average swampland rain shelter. This was an old Second Empire lab, and as Nuke rummaged around a little, he uncovered assorted documents in vacuum-sealed boxes. While there are certainly more books, mangas, digital videos, images and other computerized cultural contraband, the discourse of modern academia is almost entirely free of the Earth Clan scourge, he read on one prominent sheet. He gathered up similar reports, studies, and verbose fragments of old science for a certain special someone who probably would be very interested in this little stroke of luck. Most lucky of all was a map of the local area, as of about 2,000 years prior. It showed the little rocky hills that Shark was nestled in, albeit labelled as Pillow Down Memorial Cemetery. Thus Nuke stumbled into the swamper capital by morning's light. The orange dawn sun washed the darkness away and cast long dancing shadows from the hordes of drunk, high locals punching wildly at each other and/or some unwelcome figments of their imagination. "Mummy, I'm home," Nuke declared in the Hound's HQ. A load of the gangsters were woken up by this announcement and weren't entirely happy about it. However, the idea of actually speaking to a perky cringe-lord that early in the morning wasn't that appealing. After much waiting, Big Grim finally came out and snatched up the strings of cats from Nuke's outstretched hands. "Well, looks like you passed the test. Guess you're in the gang," Grim said, but the other gangsters were shaking their heads and swiping across their necks. "But you should probably fug off, alright? Come back tonight or something." "No time. Got these reports on, the historical consensus on parasitic degeneracy in humans. I don't know, stuff. Need to go give it to my friend, who is a girl. So, can you just tell me how to make green, and I'll go take care of it and cut you in and stuff." "Cut me in? Who do you think you are?" "Me? I'm the daddy," Nuke said with a wink. He was forced to keep winking all the way out of town, an effect of the nerve damage Grim's forehead had impacted upon his face. In essence, this all turned out to be a less fruitful relationship than it could have been, but that was an issue to deal with once the 100 keys loaded up on Gary were done with. Nuke ran off to meet with the guild on the road back east. The guild had set off that morning, and were currently negotiating with the local ninja and blood spiders about the relevant toll category for their party. You see, the ninja insisted they should be both killed and stripped of their possessions, while the blood spiders found the taking of possessions to be uncalled for, but did stipulate their right to consume the bodies of the party for sustenance. It all got a bit messy. Everyone ended up brawling for hours, with only Els missing out on it, for he was embroiled in an argument with a nearby rock over who had walked into who. Nuke finally met the party on a small hill, up which the guild hobbled and trudged. "Do you remember when you were history girl?" Nuke asked Izumi. "Yeah, heard of her. Don't know what she was thinking," Izumi said. "She's gonna be thinking, oh wow, thanks Nuke, what a hero, check this shit out." Nuke presented Izumi with a partially hydrated stack of papers. "What is all this?" she sighed, flicking through it. "The rise and fall of the First Empire? Narco spiny thighs, this is..."
"It's forbidden! Where'd you get that?"
Rick shouted, trying to get at the papers, but Izumi had them down her shirt in a flash, one of the few places Rick would not follow. "It's history and I'm keeping it," she stated. "Thanks, Nuke, that's amazing. Where did you get this?" "You know, just pulled a few strings, a few connections, influential man I am. And you always say I'm useless." "So basically you're not going to tell me where you got these?" "And breach the confidence of my elite network of elite elites." "Cool, so you're back to being useless already. Come on, we've got to get this stuff somewhere safe." The guild set off again, with Rick hovering around Izumi's payload and suggesting everyone take their clothes off for all manner of reasons, none of which worked. On Izumi, at least. They walked east into the lovely part of the empire known as the Bone Fields. It was a simple name for a rather storied land. The landscape was littered with bones big and small. The sand was crunchy underfoot for all the bony bits within, and the horizon was striped with the silhouettes of enormous rib cages. The lonely wastes were making a very deliberate point of being devoid of life, it seemed. Alongside the bones were large stretches of old metal and half-buried ships from the First Empire. "The theory is that there used to be a roof that extended over the sea," Izumi explained. "Since there's so much, bone here, they must have been keeping animals in this particular area for some reason."
"Only 'cause they kept dying when we let them out,"
Rick complained.
Yep. That was my favorite song lyric from the time,"
he added.
"Ah, yeah. Only 'cause they kept dying when we let them out. Yeah, baby, it's what I shout. 'Cause I love you so." Yep, good song. Oh, what were you guys talking about? Oh, sorry, I have my microphones off,
He got out of that one, and the crew got temporarily out of the Bone Fields for the night. This whole place was part of the United Cities Empire, and as such there was a large walled city on a hill somewhere in the middle of all the mess. It was called Katon, and was little more than a caravan stop for traders, with no farms or businesses of its own, yet quite the night was had there. First, the mundane part of the tale. There was a trio of hiveless hivers, Ronin as folk called them, who were very interested in not being stuck mucking garus amid the remnants of their old planet. When they smelled, sensed, in some way detected Gustafsson's big prince energy, they signed up for mercenary duty there and then. Each was given a free human tooth to chew on as a welcome gift, and they fell into line behind their new master. Then, the weird stuff started happening. Els was enjoying a private drink in his bucket, but had a strange feeling in his legs. It felt like he couldn't feel the ground beneath his feet anymore.
"It's the flying rum,"
his echoing voice announced, and plenty more was consumed. But alas, 'twas not the rum, but the ravages of time causing the disturbance. Said ravages went not to your head, but to your legs. If you're a Shek, that is. "What the fug? Charlie's turned into an egg!" Nuke exclaimed when he saw the damage. Els had stood from the table, and now managed to be even shorter than Tiddly Izumi, albeit with his rotundity still intact. He had turned into an egg. That really was the easiest way to describe it.
"I lost some weight, I did,"
Els proudly claimed. Is that even... Big sister, Nuke called. Elena took a look at the curious case. I think he's really old, was her diagnosis.
I'm the oldest,
Els claimed further. You're the biggest, smallest Czech I've ever smelled, Elena told him with a pat on the head. So what? This is just what happens? Nuke asked. Not normally, but normally a Czech would be dead by this point, so I think this might be perfectly ordinary. That's perfectly ordinary. Yes. He was twice as tall 10 minutes ago. Czech grow quickly, shrink quickly too, Elena shrugged. Cool. Come on, Charlie, why don't I buy the biggest, smallest Czech in the world a steak so you shrink down big and strong? Once Nuke and his big, smelly egg finished dinner, the prince noticed a trio sitting across the bar. 2 women in a partial state of dress were drinking with a well-trimmed guy sporting deep black skin, bright silver hair, and an immaculate short-sleeved leather jacket over clean white turtleneck getup. Nuke, a noble of the Empire, knew a thing or two about fashion. For example, he too wore a short-sleeved leather jacket, and the matter of who wore it better was about to be decided. Hey, punk, nice try, Nuke said, sitting down at the offender's table. At least I tried, the guy said, running his fingers over his feather-cut hair. This wasn't the man's first fashion battle, it seemed. Nuke moved his hand to his ragged mop, but it was so twisted and knotted that his fingers got jammed in it. Removing them took so long that the other 3 were done laughing by the end of it. Look, jacket boy, I'm the real deal, Nuke insisted. I wear this jacket while I'm out there walking the wastes, killing weird teeth dudes, making cats by the stack and never looking back. I'm legit. You, man, are what we in the imperial nobility call a poser. I don't need this from you, Dreg. You ain't ever done shit, the guy complained. Yeah? Don't have to pay girls to hang out with me? Well, technically I do. Speaking of that, you're due, buddy, one of the girls said to the poser. The poser's hair started to become ingreased with sweat. That's not. Look, Dreg, you got money? Yeah, and a load of old teeth, Nuke said. If you want to prove yourself, then why don't we play for it? The first thing. Sure, I bet everything I have against everything you have that I'm just generally better at stuff than you, and if you lose, you can never wear a leather jacket again. Deal. You ever played wacky backgammon before? Who do you think I am? Of course I've played wacky backgammon before. Nuke had never played wacky backgammon before. However, he was very drunk. Now it would take several volumes to explain the rules of wacky backgammon, and so the details of this epic match would be entirely lost on you, I'm afraid. All I can relay here is that being drunk gives one a distinct advantage in this curious game, and so by the end of it, the poser had lost everything, and of Nuke, the 2 girls had seen everything. That's really all I can tell you. In the winnings came the poser's contracts with the girls, who turned out to be strangely dressed bodyguards, which explained their thick arms and bruised knuckles rather nicely too. They were foreign and Shamika, and now they were Nukes, in as far as now Nuke had to pay them. Luckily, Nuke quickly thought of a use for the buxom babes. Izumi came into the bar, somewhat intoxicated already from the rest of the guild's campfire antics outside. She was looking for Nuke, of course, and of course she found him. He was walking right towards her, with nearly topless Foreign and Shamika to both sides. You can surely understand that this stirred Izumi up quite a bit, but Nuke went on with the introductions anyway. Future girl, these are my newest employees, they're like you, he said. Great start. What? Nuke, what the fuck are you? I'll do what you want, Izumi said. She turned to leave, but Nuke had a perfectly good excuse. No, they're for you. For me? What did Rick... Nuke, you really... I thought you'd feel safer with them. Safer? You know, like as guards. Since I keep getting you into trouble and stuff. You can have these 2 as your guards, and you won't have to deal with any gorilla shit you get from, guys. And they don't smell that much. and they aren't popping human teeth and whispering with mind magic and stuff. So it's a present. I'm paying. Perhaps Nuke really was being a nice guy here, but Izumi was so off balance the other way that she didn't fully appreciate it, suffice to say. "We'll keep you safe. Best in the biz," Foreign said. "And even if this chump's paying us, don't think twice about asking us to take him out, you know." "Yeah, say that again," Shamika added. "At least it's finally a woman client. Got any thoughts on uniforms, miss?" Sure, I will do. Wait, are you..." Shamika said, looking between Izumi and Nuke. Izumi ran off before further questions were raised. "Go on then, go guard her," Nuke said to the pair. "Sure, first things first," Foreign said, before promptly kicking Nuke in such a way that he spent the night on the floor of the bar. Whether this new development would help with the whole situation, if that's the right term for it, was yet to be seen. In the morning, in varying states of sobriety and health, the guild set out north. They followed the caravan routes into the part of the bone fields where the balance of bone and field started to favour the latter, the edge of the southern United Cities Empire. There they stopped in a slow town called Morn, formerly of the Empire but now left to squatters. It was surrounded by First and Second Empire ruins, plus its own share of bones, giving it a nice deathly atmosphere with a less oppressive feel than Katten. Good place to grab a snack and watch beak things kill passers-by. In a store there, Nuke bought a map of the area, which Izumi examined closely. "There, it's here! I knew it!" she eventually said. "Anything good?" Nuke asked. "The tech scribes. Like tech hunters but without the hunting. They're the world experts on decoding ancient data. Perfect place for, you know." She was nodding down towards her chest. It wasn't the clearest way of getting it across, but she was of course talking about the Second Empire goodies stowed within. It took Nuke a while to realise this, but analysing the exact contours of the communication was time well spent at least. He saw something else of interest in town also. While everyone wandered about the depressing shops, he noticed that none of the locals were going anywhere near a big Second Empire-style hall that overlooked the whole area. Naturally, he was up there in a flash. For some strange reason, the gate to get in was locked tight, chained to the ground and gateway, and smeared with messages to the effect that one should not traverse it. Naturally, the locks were broken with a smash. Inside, there was loads of old furniture and military gear, but it was strewn about the place and battered beyond use. Nothing good to steal at all, but Nuke thought he might as well check upstairs. Peering over the edge of the ramp that wound up the outside of the building, he saw that the top floor had a resident. A very peculiar resident. The sort of huge, hairy, feral beast of a resident that might just object to intrusion. As such, Nuke decided to casually return to town. There he asked in the bar if anything was unusual about the old tower. "You haven't heard," the barwoman said. "That's the lair of the great white gorilla. Beast of beasts. Killed Okran knows how many just getting it in there. The things we did to keep that gate locked up shut. Still tries to get out every night. I hate the sound of it. But that's Morn, isn't it? On the edge of death, right beside our fellows in the bones across the dunes." Nuke nodded along to this fascinating local lore, but then very quickly gathered up the party and set off for the nearby tech scribe enclave. Izumi was impressed by his enthusiasm for academia, and indeed nobody was mauled by a giant gorillo, so scholarly pursuits were already paying off. Not for Morn, of course, but they wouldn't be facing a problem they hadn't faced before. After fending off a bandit attack on the road, the guild arrived at this tech scribe enclave by nightfall. It was nicely outside of the bone fields, on a hill overlooking a damp vale dotted with lakes, or perhaps more likely, the remains of the sea that used to cover the bone-dry expanse beside it. Similar to Black Scratch, it was a highly fortified outpost of military academics, with shops selling niche goods like books and skeleton parts. "Leg!" Gustafsson called, brandishing said leg over his head. Yes, he'd finally picked up a suitable limb replacement for his yeoman Ignacio back on the farm, if you were still following that little drama. Now the question was, would this place allow Izumi to get those important matters off her chest? And did they know anything about how to grow hashish outside of a riverside latrine? The answer was yes, with an exciting variety of catches.